Staying inside of your comfort zone is literally killing you. And what do I mean by that? Everything that you do in your life is optimized to try and be more comfortable. When you should go to the gym, you eat snacks. When you should push forward and start that business or grow that business, you go back into safety. When you should take that risk to go to the next level or move country, something inside of you stops you from doing it, even though deep down you know it's the right thing for you. But a fear comes in the back of your mind. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if I'm not who I say I am? What will happen, right? And what happens is that fear stops you. And what it does is it keeps you inside of your comfort zone. And that comfort zone that you're in, whilst it feels good, it's quietly killing you and robbing you from your potential. And if you imagine for a moment, the very last 60 seconds of your life, I actually want you to imagine this for a moment. Right now, if you imagine being 90 years old or 100 years old and you're on your deathbed, and as you lay there and you look back at your life, you look back at how your life played out, how much regret would you feel for not taking those actions, not taking those risks and getting outside of your comfort zone? And if you actually notice right now, whatever that thing is that you're procrastinating from, the only thing that is stopping you is fear, is a limiting belief. And so if you imagine yourself in that future state, that simple fear is robbing you. And so if you were to look back, how would you act differently? If you knew that, for example, you only had 12 months left to live, how would you change? And I remember this was a couple of years ago now. I was sitting in the sauna and a guy came in who ended up being a monk, and he could tell I was in a place in my life where I wasn't that fulfilled, like I wasn't reaching my potential. Yeah, things looked good externally, but deep down, I felt so unfulfilled. And he asked me this single question. And he said to me, Ibrahim, what would you do if you knew that you only had 12 months left to live? And to be honest, I nearly started crying. I broke down because I realized that the life that I was living was not the life that I was supposed to be living. I could feel that I had so much more potential inside of me. And maybe you can feel that too. And that pain that I felt inside of me actually made me start taking action. And it made me start taking different approaches. And the reality is that that comfort zone is always going to be there. And it's not actually a problem of willpower. It's actually a problem of programming. And what I mean by programming is your mind is simply a computer. And just like a computer, it has programs. And a lot of those programs come from your early childhood, come from your friends. When your parents say to you, hey, money doesn't grow on trees, or who do you think you are, or you can't do that, or you're silly for wanting that. What that does in that moment is it subconsciously programs you and keeps you small, keeps you inside of your comfort zone. You are essentially just a product of that programming. And so it doesn't matter how much you want the thing, you have the desire inside of yourself. You know that you're destined for greatness. You know that you're supposed to be more. You know that you could be so much more confident. You know that you could be in much better physique. You know that you could be making way more money. You know that you could be traveling the world more, but you're not. And the reason why is because you don't believe that you deserve that. On a deep level, part of you has a mismatch between your current identity and that future identity. And right now, it's just simply more comfortable for you to be in this current identity. So what do? What's the solution? Well, in my life, even going back even a year ago or so, I realized this. And when I realized the power of this programming, that was when I started to program myself. And that was when I started to program others. And this is a true story from a couple of months ago. I actually had a guy, funnily enough, he was in Dubai, and he'd been making 100K per month for a few months. Actually, not even a few months, a few years. He'd hired all the coaches, he'd tried therapy and all these things. And whilst some of you might go, well, 100K per month is good, sure. But for him, that was nowhere near his potential. He got so much more inside of him. So what happened was I reprogrammed his mind. And I'll tell you how I did that in a minute. But as soon as I reprogrammed him, guess what happened a couple of months later? He made $466,000 that month. And now he's on the way to double that again. Simply because of his programming. And so how do you program yourself? Well, you have to start becoming aware, first of all, of what are the thoughts going around in your mind repetitively. In those quiet moments when you're laying in bed by yourself. But when those fears come up, what are those thoughts? Because those thoughts aren't just thoughts. Those thoughts are your programs. They are your inputs, which create your outputs and your actions in your life. And so if you're not where you want to be in your life right now, it's simply just a reflection of your internal programming and your inputs. So ask yourself the question, what do you need to believe in order to have the success that you want? Who do you need to become to be the $1 million version of yourself, the $1 billion version of yourself? Because if you ask yourself that question, suddenly the actions become easy. You already know what you should be doing. So it's not a case of more information. It's not a case of doing more. It's a case of being. Because then when you start to be that version of yourself, success becomes effortless. When you think about the most money you've made, it probably didn't even happen when you worked the hardest. It came when you had a fundamental mindset shift. And that is exactly what I want to help you with today. And so what I want you to do is actually click around this video where I'm actually going to reprogram your mind for free. Billionaires pay me tens of thousands of dollars for just 1 hour. I want to give you this for free. Click on that video here and experience that reprogramming to become the $1 million version of yourself.